Welcome back to the Ignite podcast. Today, we're so delighted to have Mario Orsatti on the program. I've been looking forward to recording this podcast for a while. Mario is a renowned teacher of TM, and we're delighted to have him on the program. He's been teaching Transcendental Meditation for many, many decades. Mario, would love to get an intro from you for the audience.
Well, I'm from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, the Italian section there, which is notorious. I learned Transcendental Meditation when I was teaching junior high school in an inner city school in Milwaukee, Wisconsin in 1970. I was way over my head. First year out of college, teaching in an inner city school. A very close friend told me about TM, and I said, no, I don't like relaxing. I don't like that. It dulls me out. This kind of stuff. He said, no, it's not like that. I kidded him about meditating for about 6 months. And then I started noticing, I guess I was ignoring at first, noticing that if there was any positive change in him. I'm hard to convince of anything. And so I really did notice something special was happening. He was happier. We were good friends. He let things roll off his back so much easier. And I finally asked him, hey, does this meditating have anything to do? He actually frustrated the heck out of me because we used to go to dinner regularly. Now, you know as well as I do that the way to do TM is before meals, not right after. And
Right.
so we would go to dinner every Wednesday, and he started saying, I'll meet you over there. I got to meditate first. And I said, I thought you did it already. Didn't you do it yesterday? And he said, well, no, you got to do it. I said, you got to do it every single day? Yeah. He never flapped about it. Am I kidding him? But I learned while I was in this junior high school, and it made such a huge difference. The first thing I thought was, after I started having benefits from it in the first few months, I thought every kid in this school's got to do this. They need to do this.
Right.
They're coming from a dysfunctional community, many of them dysfunctional families. Just walking down the street to go to school is stressful. And I was a pretty good teacher, I thought. And I loved teaching language arts, which is what I was doing. And I thought, I'm good. But if somebody's in a bad mood, of which most of the kids were, not in the mood to learn. And I was convinced, and I think we should all be convinced, if you're in the right mood, you like learning, no matter who the teacher is or what it is, new stuff. It can be very charming. And I could make it charming. But you're fighting this thing of people are tired and grumpy and stressed out. Some of them are angry. I was convinced if I could do this technique, anybody could do it. And in principle, I think that's true. No matter what your age, learning ability, state of mind, whether your mind goes fast or you're by nature calm, doesn't matter. And I think junior high is a perfect time to learn it. So I got a bee in my bonnet, and I thought, I'm going to become a TM teacher, and I'm going to help get this into schools. And I'm going to tell you that I'm a pretty persistent person, because it took from 1973, when I became a TM teacher, until the early 2000s for schools to be open to having meditation be part of the curriculum. People I would visit schools. I mean, I was teaching other people how to meditate, but I kept going to schools, and people would look at me like I was from another planet. You're serious? But it finally did happen. The world kind of realized that meditation is not some weird thing. And educators could appreciate the research that's been done on TM, hundreds and hundreds of studies. and some of them directly related to students, increased learning ability, better focus, decreased anxiety, all these different studies,
Right.
improving brain function, improving the communication between the prefrontal cortex and the rest of the brain. Hello, this is, going to improve anybody's condition if they have attention issues. This ADHD is slow communication between the prefrontal cortex and the rest of the brain. So I thought it was a no-brainer, but they just couldn't even bear the idea until the early 2000s. We started to get into schools, first schools that were desperate. I mean, we've taught in North America and Latin America. I work with the David Lynch Foundation as well as the nonprofit that teaches TM in the US, which is called Maharishi Foundation, named after the founder of this particular technique of meditation. And the David Lynch Foundation, we started right around that time because we saw the door opening of interest in organizations that were underserved. And so we raised money, organized programs. What can I say? It bled into naturally out of not just schools, programs for people who were suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. And what a blast there was of understanding and appreciating the rise of PTSD in veterans coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan. So now it's like wherever there's trauma, we get on our horse and go into hospitals during the pandemic. And, there's really good research just come out on our impact on nurses during the pandemic. So anyway, is that enough? I love teaching Transcendental Meditation. I can tell you that. You and I both share a love for what we do, and it's just never work. It's just great.
So maybe we could back up and talk about what TM is.
Okay, Transcendental Meditation is an advanced form of meditation, although it might seem, how can it be advanced? You hear about it and people say, oh, it's simple to learn and easy to practice. Yeah, it does something that advanced meditation practices have to do. They don't just calm your thinking mind. If to explain to you, let's start just with an example of what the mind is like, an analogy, an ancient one. Your mind, you could say, is like an ocean. So the ocean has a surface that seems like it's really moving. And waves on the surface, sometimes when they're nice and smooth, it's great. If you've ever been out in an ocean when it's rough, it can get rough. Waves can get high and they can crash together. It's challenging. Let's say that that's like our conscious thinking mind. Sometimes it's flowing easily, and sometimes it's more intense and chaotic, stormy. You can be having thought storms. But whether it's flowing easily or a thought storm, it's only a small band of the potentiality of what the mind is. If you dive within an ocean, what do you experience? Even if there's a stormy surface, there's less turbulence as you go beneath the surface and less as you go deeper. And as you get to the bottom of the ocean, there's this wonderful silence. That is what our minds are actually like right at this minute. Even if you're listening to this and you're saying, I don't think that's my mind. No, it is your mind. You experience sometimes the absolute isolation on the surface. That's when your mind doesn't feel good. It's not right. You can't think clearly. But when you do have a great thinking day, you have a great day, any great day, there's a tendency for the mind, no matter how many thoughts you're having, you're getting them. You're comprehending the perspective of all the thoughts you're having, and you're able to make the best choices because you see the big picture and you can focus sharply. Those are days when you were below the surface of the mind. Your consciousness, which is what the ocean analogy is about, it's the range of your consciousness. It involves an active level, finer levels, more subtle levels, and a supremely silent level that's at the core of your being, at the core of who you are, at the core of your consciousness. So if you can get your mind to be familiar with the whole range, and this is what deep meditation is for, spend a period. Now, the idea of TM being done every day is something that concept was brought to light by the founder of the TM program, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. And 20 minutes followed by some activity, you come out of it. What for? Well, you got to work. No, not just you got to work. It helps to integrate the effect of meditation into your life. So having activity after a period of meditation is of value. It's part of your development of consciousness because your mind wants to maintain it. It likes it. It likes having that broad awareness. So,
and as you're saying it, I'm feeling it, right? Because as a TM practitioner, when people talk about TM, you kind of feel what you feel in meditation. And there's levels to TM, of course, that are spoken about, right? That first level is sort of the there's 7 levels of consciousness. Maybe you could explain to the audience what those are and why they're important.
Yeah. Well, the waking state of consciousness is that changing value of awareness. It's dominated by the mind being active and overshadowed by the activity you're doing. You all know that to a greater or lesser extent, depending on what your day is like and depending on what the stimulus coming to you is like. We all have our days. If some change happens, some challenging situation occurs, there are days when we handle it easily. The problem of it is not problematic. And there are days when it's overwhelming, the same thing. We're in a certain mood and someone just says something off to us, we could get upset. And later you think, why am I getting upset about this simple thing this person said? It's the state of the brain physiology and its counterpart, our consciousness. And so that waking state is variable. And we say to ourselves, why don't I have good days all the time? I mean, when you're having a great day, it's almost like you're a genius. I don't care who you are. You can't say anything wrong. Everything comes out just right. You know when to shut your mouth as well as when to open it. You're there and it's flowing. This professor at University of Chicago is famous for this concept of flow. He's made this famous. His name is, I never know. No one knows if you're pronouncing it correctly. If you look at the name, it's mesmerizing. Csikszentmihalyi is something like what his name is. The whole concept that you're at your best when there's this experience of flow. And his belief is that if business can focus on somehow developing the flow state for the employees, you're going to have a better business. The business is going to be more successful and more creative and longer lasting through difficult periods. So waking state, you get the flow every once in a while. The development of consciousness through waking, and you have sleep, which is necessary, but just one of these basic states, or dreaming, which is also a necessary state, there's the possibility of developing a state where the flow value is there all the time. And the great thing about meditation practice is you don't have to do it for, a year, 5 years, 10 years, 25 years. If it's a practice like TM, you're going to experience that increase of flow in your life right from the first months and years of practice. It's going to continue. So that's cosmic consciousness. It sounds, cosmic consciousness. My God, oh my God, a higher state of consciousness. I mean, hey, it's your best version of yourself all the time. What is the big deal? You have that, at least a glimpse of the best version of yourself on your best day. So if you could have it one day, why can't you have it all the time? Wouldn't it take just like getting the brain to function more? And I don't mean the jelly ball that's inside your skull. I mean the whole brain physiology. Getting that tuned up. TM comes from the yogic tradition. It's the oldest of the meditative traditions in the world. TM's a part of that tradition. It is an experience of yoga. When your mind settles down and consciousness is aware of itself, that's something that involves three different things. You, as a knower, an experiencer, the process of experience, which is always there. It's like we're having the process of experience by seeing and hearing and thinking. Okay, those are the processes of experience. And then you have the object of experience. Now, we're experiencing this threefold state of mind all the time. But what happens if the object and the subject and the process of experience are all one thing? That is a unified state, a totally integrated state of mind and body. That's what an advanced meditation practice like TM is helping to develop and helping you maintain during your daily life, helping you to, the only problem with saying it this way is that yourself is not an object. It is the self. It's not, you're not experiencing it. You are that. So in a very wonderful, profound way that impacts your life, you are gaining more of yourself. You could call it self-knowledge, but that sounds like an intellectual thing. That sounds like a philosophical thing. This is just being, your own essential self being awakened. Now, there are higher states of development which naturally then occur because your body in that state is free from the restricted values of what science would kind of put in one category, stress.
Right.
The accumulated fatigue, the accumulated stress that builds up naturally from childhood right straight through our adolescence. And adolescence is a big period for freezing human development, according to modern psychology. We continue to grow physically, but all you have to do, Brian, is get somebody really mad or, under extreme stress. And you'll notice, everybody's noticed, the person starts behaving adolescent. I mean, just look at Congress. When they really get in a fight, you sit back and think, wait a minute, what is this, high school? Let's get why aren't you more mature? No, because it's the baseline of development that we fall back on when we get really challenged. So we want to have a nervous system that's totally resilient. And the state of cosmic consciousness is that, a resilient mind and nervous system that doesn't lose its capacity for maintaining a centered, calm, but alert, not dull calm, fully alert calm state.
Yeah, that
And
would be the fifth level,
that,
cosmic consciousness, where you're
that
abiding in the unified state of consciousness all the time.
yeah, the unified consciousness of transcendence is maintained along with waking, sleeping, and dreaming. Now, from that state, naturally, don't you think if you're in a state like that, your ability to enjoy and appreciate everything around you, all that you're doing and everything around you, advances. And that refines the way you see the world. It refines your senses
Mm-hmm.
of perception. And that leads to more refined state of consciousness where, yes, you're in a state of inner freedom.
Mm-hmm.
There's
The
this
Buddhists
wonder.
might call that like the liberated state. Like I'm.
I think every major tradition of meditation, all the advanced traditions of meditation, they all use, you'll always see this one word in all of them in different languages:
Yeah.
liberation,
Yeah.
freedom. And, when we talk about how TM works, this is a very important concept. Um, Brian, when you first learned TM, you know that if you can think back to that, and they
Yeah.
were explaining how it works. And we always say to people, look, in TM, there's no concentration or control. This is a technique.
That's the real trick of TM that I've realized is
You did other
after
forms of meditation.
I meditated for a couple decades before I learned TM, and I remember that being, it's still the hardest part. It's the not trying. It's not forcing anything, right? It's just being with the mantra they give you, uh and not forcing it, right? And it's the most subtle thing. It's the most subtle thing. It's like the easiest to learn and the hardest to master, because I mean, some people don't get it, right? There's lots of people that I've known take TM, stop doing it, right? Because I think it's such a subtle technique. It's so easy to learn, and it's really, really hard to master. And I've actually coached some people that kind of learned it and stopped. And I was like, "Why'd you stop?" I was like, "Oh, just wasn't seeing any benefits." I was like, "You might want to just try it again, but not try." you know, just go in and just effortlessly say the mantra and not try, and just not even try to say it, and just sit there for 20 minutes and see what happens. And when I coach people like that, they come back and they're like, "Yeah, I see it now. I get it." But it's just really that, and they tell you to not try in the course, right? Any great teacher, such as yourself, will tell you not to try. But to not try in our culture is so counterintuitive, because we're always trying all the time.
You know who learns TM the easiest? Our junior high kids.
Mm,
I'm not prejudiced because I was a junior high teacher, but it's true. You ask any
yeah.
TM teacher, you take a 12-year-old. I've had so many courses with executives, in New York, and sometimes after they learn, they'll bring in their family, and they'll bring in some kids. And if they have we start TM only at age 10, but if they have a child between 10 and 15, uh, I'll start each class and say, okay, now I don't want the adults in the room to feel bad if so and so, I point to one of the kids, if he seems to be getting it much quicker.
Mm,
It's just the way it is. TM is a technique that involves innocence. Now, I got to tell you something. I think we can help people to understand the effortlessness of TM by not making it so mystical, like, oh, I just don't think I can get it. I just
mm,
can't do anything without effort. Now, first of all, I always explain to people, look, from the time you remember, your parents encouraged you to try hard. You can't succeed unless you try hard. And if you go to school, you're going to get a better grade if you're trying. Okay? Trying is rewarded.
Right.
It's the name of the game in education. If you do a sport, the coach who's a good coach is going to say, I want 100%.
Right.
I remember seeing, I really liked this movie about the U.S. hockey team, that beat the Russians. And I like this little section. I noted this section where the coach says, hey, look, this was during tryouts and everything, and they had the best hockey players in America. And he said, look, do me a favor. Give me 99% because I'll know who to cut then. We're trying is a skill, and it's part of our skill set. It's very important. There's no doubting. This meditation is not about, okay, you have to be effortless in your life. You got to try. In activity, you got to put yourself into it. And you learn how to do that. And the better you learn how to do that, the better off you're going to be. However, it is not the only skill. For example, do you play tennis or do you play a sport?
I play basketball.
Okay, you play basketball. Yeah, we talked about this.
Yeah.
Let's say that some of the people listening to this play a musical instrument, or they play golf, tennis, or they learned how to dance. Any of those skills, when you get good at it, what happens? It becomes effortless. If you start, not many people start playing basketball as adults. I started playing tennis only as a young adult. They didn't teach it in my school, and and I really wanted to learn. And I was very good at baseball, and I thought, well, this is going to be easy because it's a racket, it's like a bat, and there's a ball. And when I started, it was hilarious. I couldn't get the ball over the net. I'm hitting it as hard as I can, and I'm swatting at it, and it wasn't happening. And I was exhausted. You get exhausted doing that in about 5 minutes. And I noticed the second time I went out to play, there was a 10-year-old in the court next to me. That 10-year-old was hitting the heck out of the ball right into the court. And I thought, wait a minute. Okay, I need some instruction. And I was cheap. I didn't like to get an instructor unless I had to, but I succumbed to it. Okay, I'm going to get a tennis pro. What is the first thing a tennis pro tells you to do? They all do it. He says, hey, I like your enthusiasm, but let's not try to kill it.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Just take the racket back.
Same with golf, right? Don't try to hit the ball that hard. Yeah.
Yeah, same. Take the racket back. I'll feed you the things. And I want you to just move your body forward like this. Okay. And after a while, that felt good. And he's getting it. And then, you advance, and he even shows you how to do the backhand, which you think, no, that's impossible. You go like that. No. Turn on it. Have the racket back. Look over your shoulder, and then just move your hips, and the racket will come out. I mean, suddenly, and I don't mean suddenly. I mean, I picked up tennis pretty well, without too much. Tennis, golf, playing the piano, playing basketball, you get good, it's effortless.
Right.
In spite of the fact that the tennis pros grunt, that doesn't seem effortless. But that's just letting off some supreme energy. Most of us don't grunt when we hit the ball. Transcendental meditation is like that. Now, given all the things I've just given you examples of, depend on talent. Okay, you're good at basketball, Brian, when you have some talent for mind-body coordination for basketball. Other people might be good at a different sport, but not basketball. So there's size, weight, talent, all those things in sports. But in TM, you're using the natural motion of the mind. And when you explain this to people first, that there's a natural tendency in your mind that doesn't involve effort. It's the mind changing from one field of attention to another. Like the people who are viewing this, if what we were just talking about was not interesting, they'd be off thinking of other things.
Yeah.
Your mind just has to have something that's charming. I said to somebody in a talk on Zoom yesterday, it was a family, and I said, look, if you're at a gathering, a family gathering, and maybe it's a reunion and there's 30 people, and you're in a small group with the people you know best over here, and you're having a conversation and it's catching up, you're engaged. You're not making an effort to listen.
Right.
What happens if the group next to you suddenly mentions your dad, something about your dad, and your attention just shifts over there? Let's say somebody across the room and there's all this din of noise, everybody talking. Somebody mentions your name over there. You're going to hear it. Your attention's going to fly over there. I know a lot of people, Brian, are used to hearing, yes, but I have a monkey mind. Have you ever heard? You probably heard that in the other forms of meditation. In this particular tradition that Maharishi Mahesh Yogi comes from, it's like the core of these meditation traditions. Maharishi had learned that the essence, the essential understanding of meditation had been that your mind's not like a monkey. It's like a honeybee. It moves, but like the honeybee seems like it's a crazy bug that just, why doesn't it stay over there? Why does it not just go from the flowers here? It goes back and forth and back and forth. Because its sense is the most nectar that's available next is over there. And then it's back over here and there. Our minds are like this, and our minds function effortlessly in their move toward a field of greater interest, greater charm, greater knowledge, greater experience. Our minds want to grow. This is not a unique idea. Evolution is the nature of life. Everything is evolving. So our minds are expressing this tendency. It's not a big coincidence. It's
right.
part of us. And if you could find a way to give the mind a chance to go back toward itself, it would do it. That's what your experience is and my experience, and anybody who learns TM and practices it properly, you're going to get the mind to transcend, go beyond this surface level of thinking and this outward direction of thought. It's going to go within. It's more charming. What's more charming? We said it earlier. Freedom. It enjoys the expandedness of that inner awareness. This is how people like me, who are pretty wired, can sit for 20 minutes without any, I don't mind at all.
No, you look forward to it. Once you taste the freedom, you want to keep going back there as much as possible. And what I found in my practice actually is it can actually set you back because you're forcing it again. You know what I'm talking about? Like now you go into TM with a mission, right? I'm like, I'm going into the freedom, but it's inversely correlated to effort.
Yeah.
The more you try to get the freedom, the less likely you are to get to the freedom. And a lot of other
anticipation, no expectation. Now, we're not used to that, but I've enjoyed teaching TM my whole adult life. This is my 50th year.
Wow. Amazing. Longer than I've been alive.
I enjoy it because I love the fact that you can help people not only get the initial instruction, but you can guide them. You know, they can come back to you. It's nice thing about TM, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who structured this whole program, and all the teachers were are trained according to this whole system. He said, now, I don't know how you're going to do it. You can have an upfront fee for learning, but there should be no fee for the rest of their life, because when they have an issue, there should be no barrier to them contacting you and solving that issue. Like you were saying, oh, you have a deep experience and you think, okay, next meditation, I can't wait. I'm going to get right in it. And
Yeah.
if there's a little effort to do that, you're not, okay, you get a little follow up with the teacher, and the teacher can help you with that.
I love that. And, I had those experiences in other practices, but they were fewer and farther between, sessions, and they were harder to get to. Because there are many paths, right? There are many paths
Really.
to the liberated state, right? Um, and I see the book behind you, the Supreme Awakening book, which I highly recommend anybody who's a meditative
That's a favorite of mine.
practitioner. Yeah, because he goes through the book in excruciating detail on how all the different religions and meditative practices have similar experiences, right? The way I describe TM is it's sort of an effortless shortcut. You could go count, mantras, or you can go, awareness of your breath. You can go scan your body. You do a bunch of these practices, and it'll lead to the same place, that liberated state. But I think TM is a shortcut for getting there and abiding there, and then bringing it into your daily life as well.
Yeah. Well, that book does something for me that is even a bigger thrill. And that is, people who didn't have any religion, they experienced transcending, that fourth state beyond waking, sleeping, dreaming, just naturally. They didn't have to have any cue. They experienced the fifth state, all seven states.
I actually had this as a kid. I experienced that
Yeah,
state
natural.
a handful of times, not all the time, but I could distinctly recall a handful of times having that spiritual experience where you're in the universal consciousness, the free space, the liberated state. And so some people can spontaneously go there. Sometimes you look at a mountain and you go there.
Yeah, takes your breath away.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people have it, and sometimes if they think about it, they'll notice it between waking and sleeping. Or more likely between being asleep and waking up. There's moments people have where they're there and there's just this expanded value of awareness and silence. That's not just, well, I didn't wake up yet to start thinking. No, that would be a dullness. I'm not quite awake. This is where there's a expanded wakefulness and good feeling. Often that's the start of a great day.
So I'd be remiss, this is primarily a podcast about startups and venture capital and business, which I think intersects nicely with TM, because there's been lots of famous organizations and some of which you've been involved with directly. Maybe you could speak to, some of the impact you've seen on companies that have implemented TM or organizations.
Well, when we were working in New York on the David Lynch Foundation, anybody who's lived in New York, how many galas can you give in a year? I don't care whether you're
65.
Yeah, no, you can't.
Maybe 2 a day.
No, you just can't. You got to give one here, or maybe a secondary one here. And we had all these schools that wanted to have programs, and we wanted to fund it all. So we came up with the idea. Bob Roth, who's a genius, who's the CEO of the foundation, had the idea. Look, suppose as part of our foundation, we offer TM to corporations or businesses, and we'll tell them, look, we're going to teach you a great form of meditation. Anybody in your company can learn it. We'll make it available, given good introduction to it, talk about the scientific research. And the people who learn, their course fee, the standard course fee for learning TM, will go to our programs. So that they're not only learning something for themselves, but they're funding children learning TM or veterans with PTSD.
Yeah.
So that worked very well. you know, it was fun giving courses, in the different major companies in New York. It started, of course, we had an advantage because Ray Dalio, who most people in business know about, Ray was very upfront. He helped with our foundation, but he was very public about saying, practicing. He learned TM in college, and he thought that TM was the most important reason that he was successful. Now, that's putting a lot out there for somebody like Ray to say that much about it. And a lot of
for the audience who doesn't know Ray Dalio, Bridgewater Capital, one of the largest hedge funds and most successful of all time, billionaire, author, speaker, just all around brilliant guy.
Yeah. So Ray was happy to say that and put it out there and be on video saying it. And so, with that, well, first of all, he said, why don't you teach at Bridgewater? If you're going to do this, I would love people to learn at Bridgewater. So I would go out there every few months to Bridgewater. We started that program in 2009. And it was fun because Ray had the idea, look, I'm not going to, he said, I could fund it. Some people, want to just pay for their employees to do it because that's what you do. You want to appreciate your employees and pay. He said, knowing TM the way I do, I want them to give it a try. I don't want them to, I'll pay. I could. I mean, obviously Ray could pay for everybody to learn.
Right.
He said, no, you got to do the whole course. It's only 4 consecutive days, about 90 minutes a day. We would go out there and do the classes.
Yep.
He said, but I want you to do the follow-up. I want the teachers to come out here and anybody who has questions, and there's a standard follow-up program, and I want you to do it. And after 3 to 6 months, if you're doing it, okay, then I'm going to pay. I'll give you back the money. You got to put up the money first. You got to put the skin in the game, Ray would say. And I thought that was brilliant. Some companies, I've explained that. I say, this is the way Ray, they say, no, but I just want to pay for it up front. Okay.
Right.
But we give the same program, and I think it's worked well either way. But the Ray's approach, I think more people started with Ray's approach. They would pay the course fee. Now, the standard course fee in TM is on a sliding scale.
Right.
So if you're making over $200,000 a year, okay, it's $240,000.
You can afford to pay. Yeah, you can afford to pay more. Yeah.
Yeah, and it just goes down in increments to, oh, you're a student. Okay, then it's so. But in Ray's company, obviously, the
That's interesting. So you got this multi-billion-dollar hedge fund, a billionaire, and he's like, well, I want you to try it, but I want you to pay for it.
Yeah. Under the understanding, if you go through the whole thing, and then I'll compensate.
Oh, okay, so if you go through the whole thing, you pay up front, and if you get benefit from it, I'll reimburse you.
Not even if you get benefit from it.
Oh, just if you complete the course.
You wouldn't have to say, "Oh, I loved it." No,
interesting.
It was very popular. I mean, yes, the vast majority of people really enjoyed it.
Do you have any anecdotes of like kind of the impact at Bridgewater over the years?
There's some video of it, and I think that the one that strikes me the most, or the couple of them that strike me the most, were people with kids. Because one guy said, I'm doing it for like 4 weeks, 6 weeks. And one day my, 8-year-old says, "What's the matter, Dad? Didn't you meditate today?" And he said, you start to realize that people around you
Yeah.
can tell the difference,
Right.
uh, if you've missed meditation.
Yeah. And the
And
meditator, like I know if I miss a morning session, like I feel different during the day.
yeah.
Yeah, you
Well,
definitely feel it.
Brian, with what we all experience in the 21st century, it's a fast world.
Mm.
It's an intense world. So you're going to have feedback. You've got to be on. If you have responsibility, you need to have some tool to have you increase the
Yeah.
capacity of your mind to think and evaluate and
Yeah.
perceive and
We
act.
all know we got to eat well. We all know we have to sleep well. We have to exercise, right? Diet, sleep, and exercise. But you have to do something for your mind and your spirit as well, right?
Yeah.
And TM, especially for startup founders out there listening, can give you that space that you probably aren't taking for yourself to relax and let the stress dissipate and have clarity and focus and be able to come back with a refreshed mind.
We're talking about books, and some of the people who are listening to this are in the small percentage of humans who read books, actually, at this point.
Oh, I heard a crazy stat. There's only 60% of people, something like that, after they graduate college, never read another book. I don't know if that's true, but if it is, that's crazy.
Yeah, it may well be true. It's not that hard to believe.
Yeah.
But there is a book that is so well written. It's not by a TM teacher. And I hate to say, the best book I think is something that a TM teacher didn't write. He was a senior researcher at the National Institutes of Health for more than 20 years. His name is Dr. Norman Rosenthal. He's an MD and PhD. But he's the discoverer of seasonal affective disorder and the light therapy that's helped millions of people. And what happened was he's at NIH. He's seeing that NIH is funding research on TM and its impact on heart disease. Why are they focused on heart disease? Well, it's the number one killer and it's the number one expense in our healthcare system. So, all right, let's spend millions figuring out TM's impact on heart disease, what the results were impressive. But he was in NIMH and he wanted to know, but what about the impact on a person's health mentally? And so he started to prescribe TM to hundreds of patients with anxiety disorders, depression, bipolar disorder, PTSD, the whole incidence of everyone claiming I have ADHD. And he wrote a book that's not only a wonderful, systematic, almost very fascinating scientific look at TM, but he looks at the differences between TM and other techniques of meditation. He does this brilliant analysis based on, the hundreds of published studies that have been done on TM. And I find the book just fascinating to read. It was a New York Times bestseller in 2011, which I guess says a lot of people liked reading it. And a lot of people decided to start TM as a result. But I always recommend it for someone
What's the title of the book again?
It's called Transcendence, Healing and Transformation Through Transcendental Meditation. And the author is Norman Rosenthal.
Yeah, amazing book. I did read it a while back, and I'm reading his Supermind right now.
Yeah, he
as
wrote
well.
a second book.
Yeah,
called Supermind, and a great contribution, I think.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that I think is fascinating about different forms of meditation is we're starting to get an understanding that different approaches to meditation, which different approach means you're doing something different. Obviously, it influences your brain differently.
Right.
Some meditations are really geared to monks, because they involve withdrawal. They involve certain lifestyle change, withdrawal, having less desires, because they want you to get beyond what's generating thought to that place of silence.
Right.
That's for a rare person. Come on. For one to naturally be in that profession, it takes a rare person.
Yeah.
And if you look at the brain activity of people starting, say, a control technique or a concentrative technique of meditation, you're looking at gamma activity in the brain. It involves some intensity, and some people can be very good at that, but it's a little rare. The mindfulness type of meditation, which is much easier, if you look, it involves less cognitive control, still some. And if you look at the brain waves, it's like really slow waves, theta waves, that maintaining some awareness of your breath, or it could be done in, I think mindfulness now has thousands of different ways you could do it.
Right.
You can have mindful, what did they say to that? Mindful eating, mindful having
sensations.
Yeah.
Mindfulness of feelings, thoughts. I mean, any of the senses. Yeah.
So
any of the constructs of the mind. Yeah.
That involves a different brain activity that's slow waves. Now, TM is in a category that most of the any meditation technique that's natural and advanced is going to be. The brain is in an alpha state. It's called alpha 1. And all the different areas of the brain, if you look at the electroencephalography, which, is electrodes on different parts of your scalp, it's as if they all start working in sync. And I think what science is realizing is that in ancient times, people didn't do just one form of meditation. Now, let me pick one. No, you would do something like TM as a preparation for being more mindful and for being more focused in your.
Well, and I find that the one does lead to the other, right? It's the many paths, kind of theory that I have, which is we're all, all these meditative practices are leading to the same place, which is being more mindful, more spontaneously happy and free, and having that liberated, free state. There's just many paths, right? Nothing's necessarily correct. Well, this was an amazing conversation. I could have talked to you for all day, probably just done an 8-hour podcast, but alas, we all have our calendars to go back to.
I'm Italian, so you could definitely talk to me all day. I could definitely talk to you all day.
This was amazing, Mario. Thank you so much for coming on. I hope anyone listening will go check out TM at tm.org, tm.org, and find a teacher near you and join us on the path.
Great. Check out our foundation too, David Lynch, foundation.org. Both.
Thank you so much, Mario. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
That was great.